G'day, I think I am now streaming live. I think I am. I hope I am. I'm just waiting to see whether this actually pops up. G'day, I think I am now. Yeah, I am. And I was, and I still am, so that's good. Okay, I'm just going to quickly share this out to a couple of people. So that I can get some feedback on how the stream looks. So the stream isn't intended to be like really popular or anything like that, because it's a brand new setup I'm running here, and I just thought that I would do this now. I've even got the wrong thumbnail on it, I've just realized, but I thought I'd do this now and go away. Just make sure it all works properly. It's going to be really unprofessional kind of stream. But I am going to do something interesting, and I'll trim this crap off the front of it once it's gone live and all that sort of thing. Okay, just going to share this out to somebody. There we go. I have pasted my URL, and it's got a screenshot on there from Assassin's Creed for the title thing, but that doesn't really matter too much. I think it's just my generic PlayStation 5 gaming kind of one, which I actually PlayStation 4, because I haven't actually got round to playing on the PlayStation 5 yet, but that's a moot point altogether. Okay, if you are on the chat, if anyone's on the chat, good luck to you. Yes, there is. Jelly. Damn, Jelly. I haven't been on here for 2 months and you jump on straight away. I'm impressed, brother. Okay, I wasn't actually... I didn't do any publicising for this at all, because I've just got a whole new setup going here where I've got a GoPro as my main camera, because it's the only one that's got a wide enough lens, because it's not very far away from me. I've got a AX53 here as a backup camera, and I shouldn't have moved the GoPro because I have a light and I got a problem with the GoPro where because of the way the lens sits and where my lights are, I need to put this minion sticker above the lens so it cuts out the flare from that light. So I'm going to have to either buy or invent a GoPro matte box. If there is such a thing that you know of, that would be great, but in the meantime I'm just having to balance a light on top of this. Bloody ridiculous, balancing a light on top of the GoPro to hold a minion sticker to act as a matte box. I just need to move it across a bit more. There we go, which gives me some front light as well. But yeah, so what I'm going to do here is continue the painting on this thing that I started a while ago. Oh, by the way, the video mixer I'm using for this is the YOLOBox Pro from YOLO Live, which is very cool, and it's going to make a huge difference to doing these sorts of things, because it's such a good little mixer and broadcaster all in one box for doing these things. And I've got another camera up top here. Tap on the screen here to switch between these clean airs. So that's the one above me. Here's the AX53 on the side, which has got... I haven't tidied this up because I'm making sure it works, but there's the yellow box I've got in the background here. So you can see how all that's set up, and you got the HDMI feeds in the top, and you can put a USB webcam feed in there as well. I've got that going out through Ethernet, but it's got wireless and it's got cellular in here. And unbelievable, my GoPro just cut out on me. Yeah, so I'm going to be having one of those nights. I might actually just leave it in a couple of minutes, because I've obviously have some technical issues to sort out, largely around power, I'm thinking. However, I do have some new power bricks coming which are going to maintain the charge on things. I can't switch back to the camera on me now because I haven't got another battery in it, and yeah, all of that sort of guff. Real smart. Actually, I will just see whether, no, because that one won't do it either, will it? That's the fast charge for that. USB charging as a standard is great, except when it's not very well standardized anymore. Now I've got no charge going into there. I'm just going to muck around, see if I can get my GoPro running again. I'm probably not going to get any painting done, but you know, that's the breaks. I don't know if that's going to charge the GoPro or let me run the GoPro. Right. It's going to come up and say battery low, but I know that, so that's no great surprise. Let me just see if this thing will even start up. Okay, if it will run off the power, then that's cool, I'll do that. It shouldn't generate too much heat in the GoPro because there. Okay, I think I've got that again. Right. Yeah, that's working. Okay, just run that off mains. Normal problem would be running the GoPro 10 off mains gets really hot, but I'm not expecting it to get too hot because I'm not recording with it. I'm just using it as a camera, as a webcam, or as an HDMI camera actually. Okay, and I've got some light up there now, and I have my GoPro sticker back on there. Maybe I can actually paint something. Should I do that? That's a good idea. Right, if anyone's listening and they feel like typing, you can tell me what the audio's like, because I got no idea what the audio's like. It'd be really cool if you could let me know. I'm going to do that really unprofessional thing where you sort of type into the chat while you're talking. Really need somebody else here with me to do a lot of that sort of thing. So anyway, here is the figure that I'm painting. It's a Minotaur. I've already done a base coat on it and some shading and things like that. So if I switch to this camera here, I can show you in some pretty good detail what we've done on it so far. Not a lot. It's just a base coat and some shading and dry brushing to bring up highlights and shadows and things like that and get some texture in here. Really, you just do that to learn the figure and get to know it a bit better. So what I want to do now is just go over the whole thing with a fairly fine brush and some sort of bone, light bone colour. I've been wondering whether to start with sort of a yellowy flesh colour and then put some ivory over the top to highlight it, or whether to start with some ivory and then do a bit of a pale wash with a yellow and maybe a bit of a grey to age a bone, and then highlight it again with the ivory just for edges. I'm not too sure yet. Or I could just leave it that colour it is and dry brush it with some of the ivory. There's always several different options you can use when trying to figure it out, and the bits I'm looking at in particular are, I'll just grab a brush to point with, a fine, this is a 50 brush, just like the skulls in here, and in here we've got the teeth up in here. I've got the bits of horn, as you can see that one's capped with metal, but it's broken off here, and this one here has sort of been broken by the look of it and bound together again. Whoops, I've just managed to get that out of focus, didn't I? Let's get back into focus here. There we go. This one here, the horn looks like it's been broken at some point, and yeah, and had a bit of metal wrapped around it there to bind it back together. So there's several different things on here. If I have a look around the back of here as well, I've got the hooves. This one here is armoured above the sort of on the ankle, and then you've got some bone down underneath. That's going to be interesting colour. I might have to do a bit of research and get some reference colour on that. And then they've got all these bits of metal, so obviously the axe blade, the bindings around, they've got the shield here, which is going to be metal. You've got the hilt on the two axes here, and we've got these little bits of armour plating that he's got bound around him and on the necklace and that sort of thing. Oh, we've got a couple of little tusks in here as well, so they're going to need to be bone, so they're going to be ivory. And then we've got some other details like this rope that comes around him. You can see there's a break in the rope there, and that's because there's this shoulder plate which goes on here somewhere. Oh, is it that one or is it this one? It might be this one here actually that goes in here. Yeah, there's that shield that goes in here. I haven't done the shield or prepped it at all yet because painting up underneath it would be really painful. And then there's this here, which is another piece of armour which goes on here, and as you can see, that gets strapped in under his, I'll just get that around there, you can see that gets strapped on underneath. The other bits of metal that we've got that are going to need painting, we've got this big leather belt here, and it's got this metal banding around the side here, so that there's metal underneath there, metal strapping that's on top of the leather. Then we've got a bit of cloth for the loin cloth around there, and around under here we've got little bits of metal for the chainmail, bits of rope all around. There's some scars that I want to do something with to bring them up. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do there. We've got some other bits of metal up here which obviously protect his neck as well or something. They're just like fragments off something. I don't know where they would have come from or how they're supposed to look, but yeah, they're a bit odd. Other than that, there's just the fur on the tail, there's leather strapping underneath the fur and under here and that sort of thing. So yeah, quite a bit to go with. Okay, what do we got here? Somebody's actually watching. That just might be me actually, but that's alright. Yeah, it is interesting. So the setup seems to be going quite well so far. I was wondering about the autofocus. There's a huge mess in the background here, but that's just because I haven't tidied anything up yet. And I might want to revise my lighting at some point. This got another camera here, which is this top-down one, which is interesting. It's not quite in the right place for me, but I'll work on that later. I actually want to bring it around that way, but I'll just see if I can rotate that one. I might be able to rotate that reasonably easily. If I rotate that like that, then that's in a much more comfortable spot for me. Yeah, that's better. And it's kind of looking down this way now, so that's upright, so it's kind of looking back a bit at it, and might need to twist it that way a little. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so let's start by painting up some of these areas. I'll use a slightly coarser brush. I've got this really bad habit. Whenever I pick up the brush, I always just moisten it with my lips. The problem is that I do that whether it's clean or it's got paint on it. I just don't care, because in theory all these paints are food grade anyway, so it shouldn't actually matter too much. Okay, I need a paint palette, and I've got a heap of them here. Here we go. I use these things. This is a a plastic lid that comes off my wonton soup from takeaway shop round the corner. So Kev's not going to be watching this, but thank you, Kev, for supplying wonton soup and these things. They just make an absolutely spot on palette, particularly because around the side here it's got a bit of a textured surface. It's a rough surface, so that's really good for prepping a brush for dry brushing. Okay, so I'm going to start here with a bit of ivory. I'm using the Vallejo paints. This one here is an ivory. That's probably not the best camera to watch that one on. There we are. So that's an ivory. Yeah, number 7918 if you care. If you want to know anything about the stuff I'm using, just let me know and I'll put it in the description after I finish the video. But Vallejo paints you should be able to get anywhere around the world. They are where are they from? Yeah, they're from Spain. They're made in Barcelona, so there you go. They do make footballers and pretty good modelling paints. So there we go. I'm just going to grab a bit of that on the brush, and I'm just going to come over to that texture bit on the side here and just make sure I don't have too many blobby bits on the brush, and let's start painting this bugger. Okay, I'm going to go to that screen there, that camera. I'll just turn that around a wee bit so that it's actually pointing at the figure I'm working with, and then I'll get it in focus. There we go. The AX53 is really good for doing this sort of thing because you just push the photo button on it lightly when it's shooting video, and it starts focusing for you. So let's just start painting on there, always pulling aside, and this is going to look really naff at first because I just sort of want to get this really rough colour surface on there. Grab a bit more of that paint. Don't want too much on the brush because if you do that you can get horrible runs or anything. So, and it doesn't need to be a big thick heavy coat or anything like that. I'd rather run a number of light coats than a single heavy coat, because if you put heavy coats on you just start losing texture on the model. There we go. I'm not worrying about getting it into some of these crevices. You can see there's a little bit in here. You might be able to see that one where there's a bit of a dark line because there's actually a slice in the model, so it is part of the texture of the model. I don't want to fill that up because I don't want that line to go away, so, and it would be a natural shadow crevice, so don't feel you have to fill those things up. You're mostly getting the top of the surface, not worrying about getting to crevices and things. Okay, so that's that bit, and then I'll get the broken off bit of the horn, which is out here. Being a bit more cautious. It doesn't matter too much if I spill out onto the surrounding plastic, because I haven't painted that yet, but once again, just want to avoid getting layers of paint where I don't need them. Now there's this bit in here, just in here, where it's kind of all bit bobbly where the horn's broken off. I'm just going to dry brush across the surface and just put a little bit in and leave that kind of textured in there. I don't know how close I can get and keep that in focus. That's just in here, and that will let me, because that's going to be shaded later anyway. I'm just going to come slightly inside here, because the horn's sort of protruding out, and like most sort of bone, the hard bone's in the middle and the outside is sort of shaves off and grows away, and that's why it tends to look split down the end here. Okay, now I just got a little bit of colour on a bit of the fur there, so I'll just use my finger and wipe that. Okay, I'm going to end up with a lot of paint on my fingers. If you're worried about getting messy and paint on your fingers and stuff like that, this is the wrong hobby for you. Right, now I'm just going to brush across this horn as well. This is the one on the other side. As you can see, there's some more splits in the ivory there. It's okay, I will leave those splits as splits, and I'm just going to come and put a light coat around here. Get the underside of that done. Get up around the edges of those splits. I do want to get up to the end of the bone in here. Hey Rita, how's it going? You'll be glad to know that this is the Yellow Box Pro I'm using, and it's doing an absolutely beautiful job. If anybody's got any questions about the Yellow Box, Rita is definitely the person to ask, though I got a funny feeling it's only Rita and I on the stream at the moment, but I will be editing this down later on. Okay. You can see why these things take a while to paint up, but it's worth taking time. And I've got to try and remember not to hit the camera with the paintbrush. Okay, so that's the underside of that done, and I just need to do the tip of that horn. It'll be a pretty quick bit to do. Okay, so that's the very, very pale raw ivory colour around the two horns. One of the reasons to spend a bit of time doing on these sorts of things as well, and taking your time doing slow layers, is that you get to learn the shape and texture and any detail on it as you're going. And that whole thing about being careful not to brush out and put too much paint on, or brush out any texture, because you don't want to be losing any of that detail. You want to be enhancing as much of it as possible. Now I've got the teeth here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint the lower fangs all the way out. I'm not too worried about getting right down to the bottom of them. I am worried about having too much paint on my brush like I did just then, because you want to try and avoid spilling around into other areas again. Every bit of paint you get on something else is a little bit of detail you've covered over. So I'm sort of getting it out to within about half a millimetre or a millimetre of the bottom gum. That's as far as I need to go. Because the bottom of it's going to be coloured with a more of a yellowy colour anyway later on, so, and we'll blend that through. So there's no point in getting right down into it with a colour that's not going to be staying there unless you needed it in particular as a base cover. Now I'm going to go back to that 5-0 brush, because I want to get, I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this one actually, and see if I can zoom in here and keep some focus, because I'm not sure what the minimum focal length is at any particular zoom. That's probably about as close as I can get with this camera at the moment. Sorry. In here I've got the canines, and then there's about half a dozen teeth, or 4 teeth or something along the top gum, and then the other canine on the other side. So that's why I'm using this really tiny little brush here. and I'll just pull that out again, so the shaking of my hand doesn't look so severe. And I'm going to really carefully get in there and try and just get a little bit of colour on each of those teeth. So just wiped everything I don't need off that brush, and there's one of the canines, and I'll do the one on the other side. That does help if your hand is a little bit more steady than usual when you're doing this sort of thing. Quite often I would actually do this down on the desk and use a loop so that I can get better detail. And it's when you're painting these sorts of things. There you go, I've done that. And there's a couple of teeth at the around the bottom drawer here as well that I'll get while I'm at it. Excuse me going quiet while I do this. Sometimes I use a loop, which is I've got one just here somewhere. There it is. Or also known as a printer's glass, because you can put that over it and get in real close and see it magnifies it a lot. And I'll just put that down on the desk and put the loop there and work with that. So you can just try and see if I can get it to focus on that through the camera for you. Yeah, there you go. So you can see that. It makes it a lot clearer, a lot more magnified, but not so easy to use on camera. You can see how that works though. But if you're just painting without filming it, that's a great thing to get. I've got that one. I've also got oh, there it is, this one here as well, which is somewhat larger loop than the other one, which is really good for the modelling. This one actually came with the Lord of the Rings tabletop gaming magazine set, so yeah, built exactly for painting these things. And I think the focal point's a bit higher above the floor of the loop in that one as well. So there you go. I've done the teeth in the top and bottom and around the jaw. I've done the large fangs coming up the bottom of the mouth, so that's cool. Now I'm just going to hit on some of the skulls down here. Yeah, hey Rita, interesting thing I'm seeing here, if you're still watching. When you said hi Tim, that came up once in the YouTube chat, but it's come up twice on the YOLO box. I've seen that before where messages get repeated on the YOLO box but not on the YouTube chat. Yeah, I might keep an eye out for that and try and replicate it somewhere. So I'm just going to switch to another camera because you get a better view of what I'm doing here, and I'll zoom in a wee bit on that as well. There we go. So I'm just going to do these skulls around the necklace now. I don't know if you can see them that easily, but there's one there and there's one there. So I'm just going to wipe a bit of paint off that brush, and I just want to come and dry brush this kind of. I'll go for the other brush again, the slightly coarser one. There we go. I'm just going to get some paint on there, and then I'm just going to get most of that paint back off the brush. Get some on there and get most of it off. What that leaves you with is a brush with just a bit of semi-dry paint on it, and then you can come in to the skulls here and just lightly brush across the top of them. I don't know how well this is going to work with this particular brush, but yeah, and then I'll go stick the brush in your mouth again. There you go. I'm just going to get a rough coat of the whoops, I moved completely out of the camera view, didn't I? Just going to get a rough coating of the ivory onto the upper surfaces of these skulls. Once again, I'm not concerned about getting a full coverage or anything. I just want to get a rough coverage of it because we're going to be going over them a lot more later on. Just going to turn that up the other way so that you can kind of see the skull shape coming through. And because I'm just hitting the surfaces with this, it's just going to highlight up the shape and texture and everything again. I'll get up around the side there a bit and up into the top and back of that skull. Apologies for continually moving off the camera. I'm sort of trying to look at 3 or 4 things all at the same time here. Now you see that brush has gone and fluffed out on me, which is a bit annoying. It's not a perfect brush for dry brushing or getting shape on things like this because it's an old brush basically. It's messing up on me, but it'll do for now. I'll probably throw it out later. I try not to throw them out. There are different ways you can recondition brushes, but it only works a certain amount. And then I'm just going to get these bones here. That are sort of strapped onto the belt, and there's a tusk there as well, so I'll just give that a light going. So you can see that tusk and a couple of bones under there. I'll turn that around that way so that you can see it better. Interesting, I'm moving things around to make them easier for you to see, but it does make it a little bit more difficult to actually paint them. Okay. There we go. Now, while doing this, I have learnt that the sculptor has decided that the skulls are attached to the rope by a hole drilled through the temple, actually through the top of the skull. I don't know how well you can see that, but there's a bit of rope that goes through, and it's pierced through sort of the centre of the skull on each of them, and that's how they're bound to the rope. There's quite a lot of thought gone into how things are attached to other things practically, aside from just being glued together on the figure. But yeah, that's looking pretty cool there. So as you can see, I've got the 2 skulls there, and let's get a bit more cover over the top of the skulls. There we go. So you've got the 2 skulls there. We've got the couple of bones and a tusk of some sort, a tusk or a horn of some sort coming through here. Okay, they're very, very bright at the moment. They're not going to stay that colour at all. We're going to darken those down with a bit of washing and shading later on. Okay, I'll just zoom that out again. That's You can get a lot more detail when I zoom in there, but it does make it a bit more difficult to hold the whole thing steady. Okay, so I'm going to have to sort of think about how I do that later. But that's largely what this stream's all about, is testing this kind of thing out. Now, I'm going to use the ivory down here on his hooves as well. Okay, let's just switch to here. So you can see the hooves I've got on him down here, and the other one up here. I actually modified the figure a wee bit so that he's standing with one hoof up on a rock. So I made the rock out of green stuff. Well, that was out of milliput, which is pretty much the same. It's a two-part epoxy resin putty. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab a bit more of the ivory, and I'm just going to come across the hooves. Now these are not going to stay this nice pristine white colour, not even close, but I just want to dry brush that onto there as a base that I've got to build it up from. The paint's getting kind of dry at the moment as well, so this will be the last bit I do with the ivory, or the two hooves, that is. But I think that is actually about all I need from it. Okay, now let's get that up into that gap under there as well. I'm going to get into the hoof itself a little bit, into the clove of the hoof, and wrap around the other side, and just cut into that bit where it's still hoof inside the fur, under the fur a little bit. There's just a wee bit of there, I think, that goes into. That's that one, and get this last bit of malleable paint out of here and do the other hoof. There we go. Get that up into there. Then down along the basin at the back. So it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to see, but it's because it's in an undercut part of the model, so I can't really show the camera as well as I would like to. And then do the other hoof surface around this side. A little bit more of the paint, the last bit of the paint. And there we go. That's all the hoof I need to get. I've got a little bit of spillage up onto some of the fur there as well, but that's right, it's only a little tiny weeny bit, and I'll get away with that. That's more about me being fussy than anything else. And then what's left on the paintbrush I'll use to come and just dry brush a bit more texture and surfacing around some of the bits of scalp, which are more solid surface parts. And I think that's probably about us. I'll just have a quick look and see if I want to do a quick dry brush of a little bit more of the horns. Now that first coat's already dried off a bit. The teeth I'm happy with. A little bit more horn surface around that side, and some of the undercut up around there. That undercut's all going to be sort of like, if you imagine bad tooth cavity brown kind of colours. Later on, most of the horn is going to be, especially the detached bits, which will be slowly rotting away. Imagine when you have a broken or bad tooth come out, how it might look. Okay, so there we go. I'll just get around the tops of those other bones here as well, and up underneath the bottom of them. Little bit of shaping, bits of detail. Being a fussy bugger now, but that's where it really makes the difference. Okay, and there you go. So that's all the ivory I need to put on here. It all looks way too bright, but that's okay. That was expected, knew that was going to happen. Wash the brushes straight away, and every time I wash the brushes, I just make sure I suck all the paint out from underneath the bottom of the things. I don't recommend you do that, though I do all the time, because I really used to annoy people around me when I did that. So there you go. So that's been about 41 minutes. Okay, about 40 minutes. So that's okay. I was going to do a half-hour stream, so I guess with all the messing around and stuff I did, getting the cameras working and all of that, it has been a half-hour stream. So I'm going to call it quits at that, and yeah, go make some modifications to the setup, though it does seem to work relatively well. Okay, I hope that if anyone bothered sticking around that they enjoyed it. It doesn't look like it, but that's okay. I wasn't expecting anyone to. So I will catch you all later, and have a good day. I'll edit this, so if you've watched the edit thing and you've got any questions, leave them down below, and I'll see you later on. Click on things, they go places.